Thank you so much. Always interesting. I kept saying, I'm not on the agenda. I'm not anywhere. Are you sure I'm supposed to be there? But it is wonderful to be here. I know most of you, but for those that don't know me, my name is Dana Young. I am the president and CEO of Visit Florida, your state's destination marketing organization. I have a long relationship. Everybody left. I kind of thought they would all stay up here. Long relationship with Dominic, with Pat Neal, and so many of you. And I commend the work of Florida TaxWatch. Over the many years, you have continued your commitment. Here, I'll put this down. Continued your commitment to be the watchdog for state taxpayers. And that is so important. And I will tell you that in my role at Visit Florida, I take that commitment very seriously as well. We are in a position of trust, and I take it seriously that we provide tremendous value to taxpayers. Next slide. Put simply, Visit Florida promotes tourism domestically here in the U.S. and around the world. Our job is to make sure that our number one industry in the state of Florida, our tourism industry, remains strong, remains vibrant, so that we continue to produce the critical tax dollars that we bring into our state economy, and we support Florida jobs. We continue to deliver results every single day. We are a revenue generator, and I doubt there's another state agency, public-private partnership, call it what you will. I doubt there's another one that can say that they are, in fact, a revenue generator. In 2018, Florida welcomed an all-time record of 127 million visitors. This was an 8th straight record year of visitation. And I'm sure many of you remember, as I do, back in 2010, when now Senator Scott was running for governor, and that was one of the pieces of his platform, was hoping that with a lot of work, we could get to that golden nugget of 100 million visitors to Florida. That was the goal. That was just in 2010. Now here we are at 127 million. Important to this group is the fact that not only do we receive money from the state legislature, but we match it. We match every dollar that we receive from the taxpayers through the legislature, dollar for dollar, with private investment. I doubt there's another state organization out there that can say definitively that they meet their match. Visit Florida does every single year. In fact, most of the time we exceed it. We do this by actively recruiting tourism partners throughout the state who invest with us in cooperative marketing programs, advertising campaigns, promotional programs, domestic and international marketing. Next slide. Since I came on board with Visit Florida in January, seems like I've lived 100 lifetimes since January. It's only been 11 months. It feels like several years. I have challenged our team to increase our investment from the private sector, always looking to continue to get those private dollars into our organization. And they have risen to the occasion. I am so proud of the efforts of our team in continually trying to be better and striving to increase the private investment in our organization. In fact, in a few minutes, if it works, I will be showing a commercial to you that perfectly demonstrates our commitment to partnering with the private sector. This is something that only Visit Florida can accomplish on behalf of the state of Florida. In addition to our more than 13,000 engaged partners around the state, we also have what we call strategic alliance partners. These are larger partners that make significant investments in our organization and partner with us in a variety of marketing activities. Some of these investing partners include Hilton, Busch Gardens, Disney, Hertz, Legoland, Simon Shopping Destinations, Universal, just to name a few. But let me be clear, because there seems to be some confusion in political circles. These companies write us checks, not the other way around. They invest in us. We do not give them money. We do not pick winners and losers. We market the state of Florida, which is a product. While it's probably obvious that these companies, these strategic alliance partners, and frankly all of our partners don't rely on Visit Florida for their success, they do find tremendous value in some of the marketing campaigns that we're able to put together that they then participate and invest in. Our umbrella organization provides the ability for these companies and for our partners to invest their resources in major marketing campaigns, particularly internationally. But don't get me wrong, we are extremely engaged with thousands of small businesses. In fact, 60% of our partners are small businesses, and we have partners in all 67 counties of the state of Florida. We have found that small businesses and lesser-known destinations, my friend Bill Talbert, Tim from Miami, will people go to Miami if Visit Florida is not here? Yeah, they will. Will people go to Ocala? Probably not. Will people find the Panhandle, or do they think that the Panhandle is destroyed by Hurricane Michael? I don't know. So Visit Florida is critical to showcasing the entirety of the state of Florida, not just Miami, which is wonderful, Orlando, which is wonderful, but the whole state, because the whole state benefits from tourism. Next slide. Florida, as you all know, is a very, very diverse destination. We have diversity of experiences. We have diversity of people who live here. We have diversity of people who visit here. And so we are constantly evolving our message. And last year, we went through a brand refresh. I think it's really great. You can see that we not only are showcasing our diversity, we're showcasing real people. If you look at some of our older ads, they were, supermodels and this perfect family, and that's not who we are. That's not who visits our state. That's certainly not who I am. We use real people that reflect the diversity and just frankly the coolness of our state. And a lot of these campaigns are focused on our natural environment, and I know Eric appreciates that. And I want to talk a little bit about environmental tourism in just a minute. Next slide. So let's talk numbers. Tourism, as I mentioned, is our number one economic driver here in Florida. And we not only benefit those companies and people that are involved in the tourism industry, we benefit every taxpayer in the state of Florida. 1 in 6 Florida jobs are supported by visitor spending from tourists. Tourists contributes $86 billion with a B, $86 billion into our state economy. The tourism industry also critically, importantly, ensures that a massive portion of our state taxes that run our government are paid for by people who don't live here. I mean, how great is that? They take a burden off of us and they pay it for us. To keep the same budget levels that we have now, every Florida family would have to pay an additional $1,512 a year in taxes if revenue from tourism went away. Many of you know the name Amy Baker. She is the legislature's economist. She works for EDR, which is a component of the Florida legislature. And to prove that Visit Florida and tourism marketing is responsible for increased visitation and more money into our coffers, Amy Baker, the legislature's economist, determined that for every dollar that is invested in Visit Florida by the legislature, Visit Florida returns $2.15 to the state. So we are, in fact, a revenue generator. It's very clear, next slide, next slide. There we go. It's clear that Florida's economy, whoops, no, it's okay. It's fine. It's slide 6. It's clear that Florida's economy depends on tourism and the visitors that Visit Florida attracts. And this is important. So I mentioned Amy Baker. She does the long-range economic forecast for the state. That is what our state budget is built on. And she presented the long-range financial outlook to the legislature about 6 weeks ago, roughly 6 weeks ago. In it, she determined, and I quote, the tourism-related revenue losses pose the greatest potential risk to Florida's economic outlook. The report goes on to say that the growth rate of Florida's economy is generally returning to more typical levels. There are drags on growth, particularly in the construction sector, and these are more persistent in the past. But the strength of tourism is compensating for this. In fiscal year 2017-2018, sales tax collections provided 77.3% of the total general revenue collections for the state. I know these are in the weeds numbers, but they are important. So $24.1 billion of our state budget are paid for by sales tax. Of this amount, tourism accounts for 13.4%, or more than $3.22 billion of total state sales tax collections. This does not include your local bed taxes. This is just state sales tax, $3.22 billion. To put this in perspective, if you do the math based on the economists' numbers and the way that they calculate the total revenue collections, just a 2% reduction in tourism-related tax revenue would result in more than $64 million decrease in state sales tax collections in our state budget. So that's a 2% decrease creates a $64 million hole in general revenue, just like that. Particularly since Ms. Baker stressed that the tourism sector is overperforming and effectively propping up the weaker areas of Florida's economy, this is not something to be taken lightly. This is not, where's Izzy? This is not in my remarks, so hold on before you switch the slide. But I want to talk to you ever so briefly about the Q3 numbers. They came out about 2 weeks ago, and we did see an increase. But for this group, you're a sophisticated group, you're going to understand what I'm going to share with you. We are seeing a softening in the tourism sector. The domestic visitation numbers for Q3 2019 were up 1.6%, which is great, until you realize that in Q3 2018, that number was 14%. So we went from 14% to 1.6%. Overall, domestic and international together, Q3 2019, up 1.2%. Good. Except when you contrast it with the last 8 years, 2010 to 2018, where the average year-over-year growth rate is 6.2%. So we are seeing what some believe could be a bellwether, and I just want to point these numbers out to you. Bill, I know in Miami you may or may not be seeing this, but it is significant, and it's something that we need to pay attention to because it could have significant impacts on our state budget and our long-term economic outlook. Next slide. But after that doom and gloom, I do want to share, just for a few moments, some really exciting recent accomplishments. Next slide. Okay, let me back up. I want to talk about our adventure campaign, and this is where I'm talking about a lot of ecotourism and just showing people natural, real Florida. Visit Florida had never specifically targeted the adventure travel sector of the traveling public. I mean, they were sort of incorporated into winter travelers and families and these things, but we had never done a campaign specifically targeting adventure seekers. So we partnered in 2018 with REI, Matador, which is an ad organization, Outside Magazine, some influencers that do a lot of adventure travel, and we targeted a campaign specifically on the adventure traveling community. This campaign delivered 204 million national impressions, and as a direct result, after the campaign was over, we saw almost a 27% increase in adventure travel to Florida. This is huge. Not only are we pulling people out of some of the urban centers that tend to get crowded, but we're showing people a new side of Florida so they don't have that been there, done that feeling. They want to come back. They see that the Everglades and the springs and zip lining and scuba diving and all of these wonderful things that we can do in Florida are available even if they've been to Disney World. Some people believe that's it, that that's all there is to Florida. We know otherwise. Next slide. Family travelers to Florida are 1/3 of all the visitors to our state. They are truly our bread and butter, but we had not been seeing much growth year over year. It was kind of just at the same levels, good, but not growing. So in 2018, we made a historic investment in marketing to family travelers. We changed things up a lot, and this is some of the creative from that campaign. This delivered 1.1 billion with a B national impressions, and the number of family trips after this grew over 24% over the previous year. So if these two examples aren't proof that marketing works, tourism marketing works, I don't know what is. We're seeing these increases, and these mean numbers. These are dollars to our state's bottom line. One more point on this families campaign. It had a 95-to-1 return on ad spend, which would not have been possible for any organization other than Visit Florida to market the entire state for family travelers. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit about international visitors. So it's critical that we attract international visitors to our state because they stay longer and they spend almost twice as much as domestic visitors. So we want to get them here, and we want them to spend. While international travel has been decreasing nationally, international travel to Florida, the market share has actually increased. And I believe that is a direct result of the strong focus and targeting that Visit Florida has done to increase international travel. We went from 22.1% to 23.5% in 2018. The video I'm about to show you, if it works, was a co-branded campaign that we did with Expedia. It ran earlier this year. It ran in Canada. It was a Canadian campaign in both English and French. And it showcased a diversity of Florida of destinations that travelers could enjoy throughout Florida. Because of this advertisement's success, Expedia decided to extend the run dates at no cost to Visit Florida and run it nationally in the United States as well as Canada. This resulted in an additional $3.3 million of earned media value for Visit Florida that would not have been possible without our efforts. So hopefully this works. If you would, yeah, there we go. Oh. No audio. Oh well, the audio is great, but the video is good too. No matter where you're from in Florida, you can see that, we pretty much target all parts of the state, theme parks to natural adventures, pretty much everything. So anyway, let's hope we have audio on the next one. So after this video ran, and with our international campaign in Canada, we saw in 2017 an increase in Canadian visitors to Florida by 4%. And that's not a huge number, but that's 4% after 15 straight quarters of declining visitation from Canada. So we are moving the needle, and it is working. Next slide. So let's talk about crisis. Visit Florida plays a vital role in our crisis response and recovery efforts. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of it lately. Visit Florida is the only organization committed to ensuring the traveling public knows that Florida is open for business following a crisis event. As you know, Florida is a huge state, and people do not understand our geography. They don't understand the difference between Panama City and Naples, or where's Daytona Beach? Is that the same thing as Miami Beach? People just don't understand. And to demonstrate that, there were plenty of people that thought that Fort Lauderdale was destroyed after Hurricane Michael. Another example, after red tide last year, we did a survey of roughly 3,000 respondents, and the question was, what city in Florida are you now the least likely to visit because of red tide? The answer, any guesses? Orlando. Orlando, they're going to see a reduction in tourists because of red tide, because those beaches, fish, all of that. So, it's funny until it's not, because it just shows that things that are beyond our control, if we are not properly messaging and doing everything that we can to counter the negative media, it will impact people's decision making. After a while, they'll just go somewhere else. And, pardon? Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. So to put this in perspective, after Red Tide last year, we had the Nielsen Company do an analysis for us. We had $22 million in negative media coverage. After Hurricane Michael, we had $35 million in negative earned media, just the news showing the destruction. And I guarantee you that number is significantly higher now after the 1-year anniversary because they kept showing it again. You know, we finally get to the point of rebuilding in Panama City, Port St. Joe, Mexico Beach, and yet on the 1-year anniversary, they couldn't wait to show the destruction again. But this is the number that astounded me and I think will astound you. After Hurricane Dorian over Labor Day weekend, we had them do an analysis, and we saw $44 million in negative earned media. So if you're a family in the UK and you're planning a trip that you've saved 3 years to take, if you aren't hearing that, you know, what you're seeing on the news isn't true, you're not taking that trip to Florida. You're going to go somewhere where you know there aren't dead fish on the beach, there's not hurricanes and so forth. So visit Florida, and our ability to put out those positive messages, to correct the imperceptions, it is absolutely critical. And if we weren't doing it, who would do it? Nobody. The individual destinations would be promoting themselves. That's what they're supposed to do. But there would be no one promoting the state of Florida. No one at all. So in closing, next slide, I want to just talk to you a little bit about what's next for Visit Florida. As I've hopefully shown you, we are invaluable to our state's economy and the taxpayers that we serve. If the legislature does not affirmatively pass legislation this session to reauthorize Visit Florida, this organization will cease to exist on July 1st, 2020. So we are going away if the House and the Senate do not pass legislation. If this happens, the Florida tourism industry will go silent on the international and national stage. We were glad to see, actually delighted to see the governor's support in his budget for level funding for our organization at $50 million and an 8-year reauthorization. If you don't know, we were reauthorized at the last minute in the budget for 1 year. So that is why if we don't have a reauthorization passed, we will go away. We used to have recurring funding. It is now 100% non-recurring funding. Our critical role in keeping our tourism industry strong is referenced in the governor's budget. Senator Galvano spoke at our tourism forum about 3 weeks ago, and he is 100% on board. The Florida Senate is with Visit Florida all the way. So we have the governor and we have the Senate. Senator Ed Hooper has our Senate bill, Senate Bill 362. Representative Mel Ponder has our House Bill, House Bill 213. We need you as leaders of the Florida business community to let the Florida legislature know that ending Visit Florida is a risk that is just not worth taking to the health and future of our state's economy. We need level recurring funding for years to come so we can continue to focus on our core mission of bringing visitors here to spend money to continue to offset taxes that we would otherwise need to pay. It is just absolutely hard to imagine, I'm sure for any of you, how you would run a business on a year-to-year basis. How do you enter into contracts efficiently? How do you take advantages of economies of scale? How do you do anything that long-range planning provides in terms of benefits if you only know that you're going to be here for another 6 months? So it is really, really critical that if the legislature believes we had value, which we do, that we get reauthorized. This year-to-year thing is just, frankly, it's just irresponsible to taxpayers because they're not able to maximize the value that our organization could provide. So to conclude, I want to show you one final video. Hopefully we will have some audio about the importance of Visit Florida and tourism marketing in the state. Fingers crossed that this one works. Okay, so we don't have audio again, but that's okay. It's okay. I mean, all the key points are in writing, so it just has nice music. It does show how important music is to anything. I mean, there's no words; it's just music, but it kind of drives the point home. Yeah, this was cool. So people that see Visit Florida advertising are twice as likely to come to Florida. African American travelers that see Visit Florida advertising are 3 times more likely to come to Florida. It's cool. We need to focus on that segment more. Okay. So I really do wish that we had the audio on that. But to reiterate, tourism is our key industry. It's our number one industry. It's not something that we can afford to take for granted. And we just need your help in getting that message out. You know, you are influencers in your area and around the state. And our request is that you take a moment and reach out to the legislatures that you know, express your support to the governor and the Senate president for their support of us. And, you know, let's get this done so that we can continue to bring value and put money into the Florida coffers. Thank you so much.